Don't take Row 69 on that.
Weight is definitely going to be competitive against that. The Maserati Ghibli, a car that people just love to hate. But is it really as bad as everybody says it is? So, this is a funny car. I mean, first of all, cold start, that's the exhaust noise. And anybody who calls themselves an enthusiast has to be a little bit excited by that. And this car is not without controversy, not least because it shares its V6 engine block with the Chrysler Pentastar motor, but Maserati designed and developed their own heads for it. It's got turbos, it's pumping out 424 horsepower. I'm inclined to think this car might deserve a second chance, especially at current used car prices. Have you seen the market for these? I mean, these were once $80,000 cars, now selling for 20s, and if you're willing to take an early example, mid-teens. Yeah, definitely worth a second look. Now, a lot of that criticism was leveled at the Ghibli's interior, which people will cry that it shared way too many parts with its FCA cousins. Yes, this stock looks and feels cheap because it is. It came out of a Chrysler. The headlight switch came right out of a Chrysler/Jeep product. And there are other telltale examples of that. Window switches, the Uconnect infotainment system, and in spite of the fact that Maserati has their own branding on the screen, it's not fooling anybody. But if you can look past those things, there are some rather nice details in here. The seats, for example, are in a rather fetching shade of leather. The material itself appears to be of pretty high quality. And that leather extends beyond the seats to the armrests on the doors, to the top of the dash, both sides, including the instrument binnacle, which has its own leather-covered top to it. Yeah, that did move when I just tapped it, but ignore that for a second. Even the way the door handles are kind of artfully sculpted into the trim piece here is a nice touch. So this interior is, I would argue, not without merit, and we're going to take it for a drive. All right, this is a 2020 Maserati Ghibli SQ4, which of course means this is the more powerful all-wheel drive variant of this car. Again, making 424 horsepower. And Maserati has, as a brand, it just has such a storied history that you almost wonder how it continues to survive more than 100 years later. They've been through ownership by Citroën. De Tomaso controlled the company for a period of time during the infamous bi-turbo era. I actually still own one of those cars, and I will argue that it's not as bad as everybody says they are. And then they fell into Fiat receivership, and that was probably a golden era for Maserati, where they joined forces with Ferrari and leaned on Ferrari's expertise to develop engines. The cars really, really benefited from that. We saw the 5th gen Quattroporte as one of the benefactors of that period of time. The Gran Turismo Coupe, which I think is a criminally underrated car, was also a benefactor. And then the party was over, and Maserati was divested of Ferrari and any platform or engine sharing. And they were left to kind of fend for themselves. And the result was cars like this Ghibli that, you know, they were kind of forced to develop a car on a shoestring budget, hence the Pentastar derived V6, which, I mean, let's face it, they were already crippled from the start with this engine. But I think, in spite of all of that, they've found a way to really make those ingredients work, where you're not sitting here saying, man, this feels like a Chrysler when I'm driving it. It actually doesn't. There's a playfulness to this car that makes it feel very sporting. Even as you're just going down the road in a straight line, this car wants to play. Oh, yeah! Chassis on this is great. Wow. This car just wants to do that all day. Holy turbo lag. I'm astonished at how much fun this car is through corners. I mean, it weighs the better part of 4,000 pounds, and it wants to dance. There's enough feel through the steering, through your seat of the pants. The car is very communicative of what is happening underneath you. And it's just saying, let's go find some twisty roads. And you know, the drivetrain in this car is actually a very willing partner. Chrysler roots aside on that engine block, this is it definitely took some vocal lessons from Italy, because it's a nice enough sounding motor. It makes, once the turbos come on boost, there is some noticeable lag from a dead stop, as you saw. But once the turbos are spooled up, it really, really moves with authority, and it pulls right to redline. If you're in manual mode, it will hold the gear, and it will kind of softly bounce off the rev limiter, and really, you'll really feel it impede acceleration until you pull the paddle and you shift. So let's talk about those paddles, by the way, because I feel like so many car makers get this very important detail wrong. They want you to manually shift, yet they put these wimpy plastic paddles on the steering wheel that are hardly worthy of your time or attention. It's a disgrace. And Maserati says, you know what? F that. We're doing it right. These are proper, meaty metal paddles. They're not on the steering wheel, which means that as you're turning the wheel, you're not like, oh, wait, where's my upshift or my downshift paddle? Because I'm completely disoriented. No, they're actually attached to the base of the wheel, so they don't move, and there's never any confusion about where your upshift versus your downshift paddles are. And it just makes things so nice to use, especially in that series of turns back there where I really was having to go through the gears, up and down through the gears, to be in the power band of this car. So thank you, Maserati, for getting that right. And you know what? Would I have spent $80,000 on one of these? Yeah, I mean, that would be silly because we all know that these just depreciate like a rock. I mean, look at where current prices are. But as a $25,000 car, I mean, there's a lot to like here. And yeah, I could look past some of the cheap interior details like the column stock and the window switches. I could forgive that stuff at $25,000 because the rest of this car gets it really, really right. Is it perfect? No. If you're not in manual mode and you know, you're not shifting gears with the paddles, the shifts are a little lazy. I'm going to demonstrate what that feels and sounds like in just a second. And if you're not in sport mode, you also don't open up the exhaust valves in this car, so it's pretty quiet, which I guess could be a good thing if you're on the highway and you just want to relax and take a Bluetooth call for work. But there, so we're not going to use the paddles at all. I mean, the shifts are good. They're very smooth. They're just a little lazy feeling. But you use the paddles and it just transforms the car. Rev matches the downshift. Brakes feel really good on this as well. They're right there. Feel is excellent. Yeah, I really, really like this car at its current used car price point. And I think, you know, I don't know what maintenance costs are like on these cars. I really have no idea. I read horror stories about them, but you know what? I've owned a couple Maseratis now, and I find a lot of that is just internet chatter from people that don't really own these cars or know anything about them. So I would be curious to hear from actual owners, actual Ghibli owners, what it's like to own these cars. So if you want to chime in the comments, I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know. But again, at its current price point, this is a very, very compelling proposition. And I think that you know, more enthusiasts need to actually drive this car, put aside their prejudices, and just go in with an open mind and really drive it. And ask yourself honestly, is this not a good sports sedan? Because I think it is. I think it's a very good sports sedan. And yeah, I wish the market would take another look at these. Don't look too closely because we don't want to ruin it. We don't want to drive up prices too much for the enthusiasts. But take another look. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Keep watching, keep subscribing. See you for the next one.